We are not afraid to die if we can all be together, by Gordon Cook and Alan East. In July 1976, the narrator, a 37 years old businessman, his wife Mary, 6 years old son Jonathan, and 7 years old daughter Suzanne, set sail for Plymouth, England. They wished to go around the world on a long sea journey as Captain Cook had done 200 years earlier. They started in 23-meter, 30-ton wooden hull boat named Wave Walker. The first part of their planned 3-year, 105,000 kilometers journey passed pleasantly. They sailed down from the west coast of Africa to Cape Town. They took on 2 crewmen, Larry Vigil, an American, and Herb Siegler, a Swiss, to help them cross the rough southern Indian Ocean. On their second day out of Cape Town, they faced extremely strong winds which blew continuously for next few days. Waves rose up to 15 meters. On December 25th, they were 3,500 kilometers east of Cape Town. Despite the bad weather, they celebrated Christmas Day wonderfully. New Year's Day saw no improvement in the weather, and it worsened with the passing of time. On 2nd January, the waves were gigantic. They were sailing with a small storm jib, but still they were going very fast. The boat moved to the top of each wave, but the gigantic waves and dangerous wind continued to terrorize them. To minimize the damage, they dropped the storm jib and lashed a heavy rope in a loop across the stern. They attached lifelines and put on waterproof clothes and life jacket and prepared themselves for the worst case scenario. The first indication of impending disaster came at about 6 p.m. with an ominous silence. The wind stopped and the sky grew dark. Then a loud roaring sound was heard. The narrator thought he saw a cloud coming towards them. With horror, he realized it was not a cloud, but the biggest wave that he had ever seen. It appeared vertical and double the height of all other waves. The wave hit the boat, and a tremendous explosion shook the deck. Water poured into the boat. The narrator's head smashed against the steering wheel of the boat, and before he knew it, he was thrown into the sea. He thought he was going to die, but suddenly his head popped out of the water. He saw that the boat had almost capsized. Suddenly, a wave hurled it upright, and the narrator was tossed onto the boat. His left ribs were cracked, his mouth was filled with blood, and some teeth were broken. Somehow he managed to find the wheel and lined up the stern for the next wave and hung on. The narrator knew that the boat was flooding with water, but he dared not abandon the wheel to investigate. Suddenly, Mary came and informed him that the boat was sinking as water was pouring in. He handed the wheel to her and crawled towards the hatch. Larry and her pumped the water out like madmen. The wooden beams had broken. The whole starboard side had bulged inwards. Clothes, crockery, char, tins, and toys moved around noisily in water. The boat had been damaged. He somehow managed to read the children. Sue had a big bump on her head, to which he did not pay much attention. He found a hammer, screw, and canvas. Somehow, he managed to stretch the canvas and secure waterproof hedge covers across the gaping holes. Some water continued to come in, but most of it could be prevented from entering the boat. But this was not the end of their troubles. The hand pump started jamming with the trash floating across the cabins. Soon the electric pump got short-circuited. But somehow the narrator managed to find another electric pump to drain out the water. The night was an endless, bitterly cold routine of pumping, stirring, and working the radio. However, there was no response to their mayday calls as they were in the remote corner of the world. Ch-2 had swollen alarmingly. She had 2 black eyes and a deep cut on her arm. She didn't tell the narrator more of her injuries as she didn't want to worry him when he was trying to save them all. On the morning of Jan 3, the pump had reduced the amount of water on board. Each of them took rest for 2 hours by turns. They had survived for 15 hours since the wave hit the wave walker, but the boat was not strong enough to take them to Australia. The narrator knew that the boat wouldn't hold together long enough. He checked his chart and calculated that the only hope was Lee Amsterdam. If they could reach Lee Amsterdam, a French scientific base, one of the 2 pinpricks in the vast ocean. Mary found some corned beef and cracker biscuits, and they ate their first meal in almost 2 days. However, their relief was short-lived. The weather again started deteriorating, and by the dawn of 5th January, the situation was again desperate. The narrator went to comfort the children. He tried to assure them that they were going to make it. John said that they were not afraid of dying if they can all be together. This gave the narrator hope and a reason to fight the sea. He tried his best to protect the weakened starboard side of the boat. However, later in the evening, as more water came into the boat, he felt defeated again. On 6th January, the weather improved, and the narrator again tried to calculate the position. While he was at work, Ch-2 came to him and gave him a card. She had drawn caricature of Mary and the narrator. The narrator made several calculations using a spare compass and made some adjustments and asked Larry to steer a course of 185 degrees. He said that if we were lucky, we would reach the island at about 5 p.m. Dejected, he went down to his bunk and fell asleep. It was about 6 p.m. when he woke up. He thought that they must have missed the island. Just then, John and Ch-2 came to him and gave him a hug because he was the world's best daddy. The narrator was confused. She announced that the island was just in front of them. He rushed out of the deck and saw the most beautiful island in the world. It was Lee Amsterdam, a piece of volcanic rock with little vegetation. When his feet touched the land the next day, he thought of cheerfulness and optimism of all the people on the boat, which made them pass through the worst stress.